This is part 2 of the previous video. I will put a link in at the end for part 1. And this is basically going to give you a better idea of how to create a better product if you're going to be pouring a porch, concrete porch, over a waterproofed area, which would be over a wood-framed floor or basement. So here we have the waterproofing. First thing I would recommend would be to put some type of a foam expansion board. I don't know if you want to use concrete expansion board. This is actually the whole purpose of this would be to allow the concrete to expand and contract and without creating problems. So let's just say you used a 1/4 inch or 3/8 inch foam, and this would be foam you could get at most home improvement centers. And the concrete expanded. It's going to push the foam, it'll compress the foam a little bit instead of putting a lot of force on the framing. And in some cases, I would imagine, I'm just guessing, I've never seen it because I haven't dealt with too many situations like this. I would imagine it could actually push the framing apart a little bit. You know, we're not talking about an inch, maybe a 1/4 of an inch or 3/8 of an inch. And if you've seen something like that, feel free to leave a comment in the comment area. All of my videos are based on my observations or the observations of others that make sense. They are not based off of fantasy, so I'm not about to speculate and get all dramatic here on how much something like this of a problem it could create. So I would imagine if you had something between a 1/4 inch and a 1/2 inch of foam or some type of a concrete expansion material, you would be fine. And then, of course, you could pour the concrete porch or stairs, whatever you would be pouring or installing. Now, after you have the concrete installed, and I've seen people actually do this before the concrete was installed, but to me, why not? Pour the porch, get it in there, and then have them install the siding. But I've actually seen people go in and install the Z-bar or the L-metal, I should say. They install the L-metal, and then someone comes in and finishes the concrete stairs. That's not something I would recommend doing. If you had to, I understand you're in a situation where you have to do it, that's fine. But to me, it would be waterproof, pour the concrete, and then do this part as I'm showing you. Now, this would be L-metal, and I'm going to try and make another video to provide you with how you actually install the L-metal, how it laps properly. And if I haven't made one in a while and I haven't put a link in here, feel free to leave a comment in the comment area and I will get on it. But something like this might actually involve me purchasing some metal and showing you in a video instead of using the software here that I'm using. So we would simply put some metal in to put the metal in so that the water, any water that gets behind the siding can actually go out instead of down behind the waterproofing here. So the metal here, even though it's on top of the waterproofing, any water that gets behind the metal is still going to go down the waterproofing and out. It's not going to be a really big deal as long as the waterproofing holds. So let's go ahead and take a little tour of the metal and the waterproofing, give you an idea of how it's going to look. Now, one thing I'd like to point out is that you are going to need to install some type of a sealant underneath the metal here. I've seen people, they just go and they just put a bead of sealant on the front, and that's fine if you want to do something like that. What I would recommend would be before you put the piece of metal down, simply put a bead of caulking down and then squish the metal into the caulking, and do not smear it. If the caulking sticks out, if it squishes out, install the metal, let the caulking dry and then cut it off with a knife. If you try to smear it here, this could turn into a mess and really look horrible. So just a thought there. And if you need more help on that, I can always provide you with another video on how to install the caulking. Next up, you would need to install the building paper, and it's going to go over the metal. So what we have here is the waterproofing, the metal, and then the paper. The paper is going to protect or provide us with a protective layer for any water or moisture that gets behind the siding. It's going to get behind the siding, come down, and roll off. As long as this area is sealed underneath the metal, it's going to roll onto the concrete. And in some cases, it's going to absorb into the concrete. But again, we can't solve every single problem. And if you want to put a sealer on your concrete for something like this, I think it would be a mistake, because any water that does get trapped below isn't going to be able to get out. So not something I would recommend, and I hope that makes sense. So here's the siding, and this siding could be plywood, could be lap siding, tongue and groove, shiplap, whatever. It could be anything. This principle here basically applies to, can be used with a variety of different types of siding. So another thing I would recommend, to leave at least a 1/4 of an inch gap between the siding and the metal flashing. Water will pool up in these areas. And now you're probably thinking, well, what about dirt and debris that gets caught in there? Clean it out. You've got to clean this stuff out. Now, one of the biggest problems with something like this, and I swear it just irritates the heck out of me, but it happens all the time. I cannot believe how many times I've built something and a painter comes along, and this happens, and it might not be during the original construction, but later on, a painter will come in and they'll caulk this area, and that is a no-no. The minute that you caulk the area, the minute that you seal this area, any water that gets behind the siding is going to get trapped, and it will end up rotting the siding out because it has no place to go. We've got to keep these areas open so the moisture can get out of from behind the siding and not get trapped in it. And I started to see that problem with elastomeric paint. People go and they paint something like the siding with elastomeric paint, and then they seal the gaps, any gaps, and then the water has absolutely no place to go. It can't even evaporate out through the face of the siding. So that's it. If you have any questions, or if I left something out, feel free to leave a question in the comment area, and I will answer it as soon as possible.